Aloha, and welcome to Feast, Dish, and Dialogue, a podcast presented by the Hawaiʻi Ag and Culinary Alliance, sharing conversations from the Feast Summit at the annual Hawaiʻi Food and Wine Festival. Here, leaders across food, education, agriculture, sustainability, and tourism come together to explore the future of food systems and hospitality, and how culinary sits at the center of the visitor experience in Hawaii and beyond. In this Feast Dish episode, we feature keynote speaker Michiel Bakker, president of the Culinary Institute of America, from the Feast Summit stage. Recorded live at the summit, Bakker shares insights on the future of culinary and hospitality education and its vital role in shaping industry success across the globe.
Aloha. It is wonderful to be back here in Honolulu. Love the islands. So thank you very much for welcoming me here. And as I am the president of the Culinary Institute of America, you probably know what we do. For now almost 80 years, we have been enabling, educating, and inspiring the next generation of culinary, food, beverage, and hospitality leaders. Before I start to talk with you a little bit more about the future of culinary education, I want to spend a few minutes to share with you some of the lessons I took with me from 12 years at Google, because I think they're very relevant for our conversation here this afternoon. So at Google, when I started in 2012, I became the global leader of their Food at Work ecosystem, and I subsequently spent 12 years with them. The beginning, Food at Work, and then over the years, I took on additional responsibilities as well, events, transportation, health and performance, as well as sustainability in the broader workforce. But three core takeaways from my time at Google. The first one, Google truly sees talent as a strategic differentiator. It is an investment in talent. Two, they're very, very focused on enabling the workforce to be successful in whatever it is they're going to be working on. And it's really thinking about the enablement component. And then the third one, for Google, education, learning, and development is not just about what you need to learn to be successful in your role. It is about feeding and nourishing the growth mindset of those who work at Google. So it starts with, if we think about the future of the workforce over here in Hawaii, do we as an industry, do we see as employers talent as a cost or as an investment? And for Google, it was really, really clear, literally from the beginning. They saw talent as the core differentiator, and they invested heavily in attracting and retaining and developing the best of the best. In addition to finding the best of the best, they really created amazing work environments as well, because the belief was, if you hire the best and you create the best possible work environment, the rest will follow. So they were very focused on to becoming the preferred employer in their respective industry. A second takeaway for the conversation today is to really think through, how do you ensure that your workforce is set up for success? So while I worked for the food team at Google, we had one of these very broad, bold ambitions. So when you work at Google, you show up because you want to change the world. It is about moonshot thinking. So from a food team perspective, we thought from how can we use our food ecosystem to make a difference in the world as well. So we converted moonshots into food shots. And one of our food shots was, how might we contribute to ultimately enabling our workforce to shift to a more balanced, plant-forward diet? And that was really because we believed it's better for you as an individual, it's better for the environment, it is a win-win for all. Didn't do that. Then what subsequently happened is we said, okay, how might we do that at work? And it started with this notion of, if you provide more information to a highly educated workforce, they will clearly be equipped to make better decisions at the time they make food choices, at lunch or at dinner. But guess what? Is when you're hungry and you walk into a restaurant or in a ballroom like you did this afternoon, Whatever you know doesn't really make a difference. You follow your sensory tickles and you go for whatever's in front of you first or what smells the best. So then what we thought, if it's not about changing the demand in itself, because that's really, really hard, what might you do to change the supply? So we said, that's pretty easy. Let's ask our amazing food service partners like the Compasses, the Sodexos, or the Guggenheimers of the world, can you offer a more balanced plant-forward offering, which we thought was going to be really, really straightforward? Well, that turned out to be a little bit more complicated as well. So before we knew it, we had these big tofu parties, and chicken wings in all kinds of variations became the next best alternative. And when we dug into it a little bit more, it became clear that the workforce responsible for providing lunch and dinner environment wasn't equipped to ultimately offer or cook a more balanced plant-forward offering. So sometimes asking somebody to do something is really, really straightforward. But if they're not equipped to do it, nothing will really happen. And based on that quest, Google started to work with the Culinary Institute of America, and we jointly developed what is now called the Balanced or the Plant-Forward Kitchen Initiative. And what it basically is, it's a training program where you can train the trainers at a site, and then your trainers will train your frontline associates to really do what they need to do and what you would like them to be able to do to cook more balanced plant-forward. Two things that stood out for me. The first one was it's really about providing your workforce with the right technical skills. And then the second one is the best trainers are not necessarily the corporate trainers, but are the peers of individuals. And that brings me to the third takeaway from my time at Google as well, is that learning and development at Google was literally a potpourri of different things. It was not just, you're lucky, you're going to go for a training for a week somewhere else, and then when you come back, you're going to be bigger and better. What we learned is that training happens on the job. Training happens when you give a person a stretch assignment. And the most amazing and most engaging part of our training was when we did what we would call G to G, Googler to Googler. Because Googlers who are passionate about something and they get to teach that to somebody else becomes a win-win for both. The person who learns about it really benefits from it, but the person who gets to teach something to somebody else becomes probably one of the most best trainers you have. So when I think about all of that, you end up with becoming one of the best employers, to be one of the best employers in the world.
You're listening to Feast, Dish and Dialogue, conversations from the Feast Summit exploring how food, culture, and hospitality shape the visitor experience in Hawaii and beyond.
And sometimes I hear when I share these stories that people say, yeah, it's easy for you to say all of that because you worked for a very profitable organization and they had lots and lots of money and they could do what they did. And I think to an extent there is some truth to that. But I would say there's a distinction between causation and correlation. Google started as a startup and they said, we're going to invest in talent and that will become our differentiator. And they became successful as a result of that. They didn't change their mindset when they became successful and then said, now that we have money, let's invest in talent. And that therefore, the question for us as employers for our future is, what will we do to really see talent as a strategic investment and not just as an expense item on our P&L that we get to squeeze when things are a little bit more challenging? So when I was asked to share with you my thoughts about the future of culinary or the future of food and beverage education, learning, and development, you know, if I could predict the future, I would very likely not be on stage over here today. I would make a lot of money somewhere else. But when I think about it, and it's really, if you think about in my role as of today, so I'm new to higher education, so one of the questions on my mind is from what should we prepare our students for? And now one of the interesting things that I've come to embrace in higher education, the question about from what is the future all about is one of those questions that you don't really get to talk about that much. So as I'm new to the presidency, I got to spend my first year to really dream about where might we be in 2035. And one of the questions I've been exploring with my team and a broader set of stakeholders is from, what do you think life will be like in 2035? Because without some clarity on what our future is going to be, how can you prepare people for that future? Because if you don't know where you're going to go, nothing will get you there, or whatever that might be. So for me, it started really to think about the future of the world in general and the future of the hospitality industry. And I think it's really, really interesting, because think for a moment, do you have a clear idea in your own mind where you believe you will be with your organization in 2035? That's a fascinating question, especially when you think about the pace of change is accelerating. Or as you can say, today is probably the slowest day for the rest of your life. Think about the impact of AI. Think about how rapidly AI has changed. And obviously, I worked for an AI-enabled organization for a great number of years, and it was just fascinating to see how quickly we turned that around, and even how an organization like Google got surprised by some of our competitors. But that's just the beginning. Now imagine what impact AI is going to have on just the world at large, as well as on our industry, the hospitality industry, or now my intersection, the future of hospitality education. And you have to combine that with the times we're in, because it's sometimes easy to dream about the future, that's fun, but at the same time you have the dynamics of the here and now, the turbulent times, the uncertainty, and all of that as well. But one of the things I actually become more and more convinced of when I think about the future of the hospitality industry, to me, I really believe that the best is yet to come. Because I do deeply believe that AI will transform our world in ways we cannot even imagine as of today. But as that impact becomes bigger and bigger, I think there's going to be this counter pressure as well to focus at the same time more and more on the human interactions as well. And when I look at the hospitality industry, I think that is where our industry will shine for many, many years to come. And if I go back in time, like 10 years ago, I thought I had made it because I had landed a job at Google. And I was going to be golden for years to come. But it's fascinating because now, as a result of AI, many of the jobs in an organization like Google are probably going to be more at risk than jobs in our industry going forward. So I really believe that we will find in our industry more new people coming into our industry as a result of changes, as a result of AI in other professions. So, although I will acknowledge that the times we're in are turbulent and at times challenging, I do believe as well, if you are excited about change, there is probably no better time than today, because the world is going through some profound changes. And I think with that in mind, I think for us in the broader hospitality industry, there are so many really interesting things ahead of us. And I think we should celebrate and emphasize that our industry is an extraordinary great starting point for so many individuals, both in the US, immigrants, and all over the world. I think the second one is that if you think about this growing intersection between food, health, and well-being, the roles of chefs, the roles of culinary leaders is just going to increase over the years to come as a result of the fact that so many of us are now dealing with diet-related diseases. So for me, it's like there is no better time to think about our future, but things will very likely have to change. So element number one to think about is the future in itself and the future of our industry. The second one is to think about the future of our workforce. It is easy to spend a lot of time to talk about what we think or not about Gen Z or Gen Alpha, or in the future, Gen Beta. But at the same time, if you think about the next 10 years, there will very likely be more members of Gen X, baby boomers, and Gen Y in the workforce Then we have people from Gen Alpha or Gen Beta. So to me, when I think about the next 10 years, it's about the cross-generation workforce we're going to be dealing with. Combine that with probably the mix of social demographics is going to change as well. Shorter tenures. There are probably individuals in the room over here who might have spent a long period of time with their same employer. I think tenure is going to actually shorten over time to come. And I think as an employer, you have to accept that. This is not to fight it, but to think through, if I have to acknowledge that my workforce will be more transient, how can I ensure that I get them on board as quickly as possible and get the most out of the time they're willing to share with me? Career converters. I have 2 kids, 23 and 25, and I tell them is that in their lifetime, they will very likely have 3 or 4 profoundly different careers, because the jobs they're starting with today will not exist 10 years from now. And the roles they might have 20 years from now don't exist as of today. And that therefore we have to think through as well. It's not about thinking about how might we get more of those who are employing as of today, but to think very broadly from what can we do for those we've never entertained. And then you have to think through as well different levels of digital fluency, which is going to impact how people get trained going forward. The days of us being able, or more importantly, willing to work 6 or 7 days a week because we were just dedicated to our employer, I think those days are over. Employees nowadays want to work at their choosing. That might be 30 hours, 40 hours, whatever it might be, and we have to adapt as employers. What they're looking for from us as an employer is different as well. Your purpose and your values will be more important than ever before. Combine that with employers going to look for personalized or customized perks and benefits. The one size fits doesn't fit at all anymore. And then last but not least, health, whether that's physical health, mental health, or ultimately other forms of health as well, will become more and more important as well.
Feast, Dish and Dialogue is presented by the Hawaiʻi Ag and Culinary Alliance, the nonprofit organization behind the Hawaiʻi Food and Wine Festival. Founded to strengthen Hawaii's culinary and agricultural industries, HACA connects world-class culinary events with year-round investment in education, workforce development, and local agriculture. Through programs that support students, entrepreneurs, farmers, and hospitality professionals, HACA works to ensure Hawaii's food and hospitality ecosystem continues to grow, innovate, and thrive.
The future of the industry, the future of the workforce, now the future of us as employers. What is it that you will need to be able to run a sustainable business over the years to come? How can you differentiate yourself from the rest of the pack? So one of the stories I always tell everybody is that, there might not be enough employees for all of us as employers. But it's like being chased by a bear. As long as I run faster than you, I'm going to be A-okay. And I think it's the same as us employers. If you are a better employer, the challenge will not be with you, but it will be with those employers who didn't get the memo. To me, it's clear as well that we have to think through in which roles will humans truly make a difference over the years to come. Because automation is coming your way, and that therefore it's not just maintaining employment, but it's really to think through what are the business critical roles and what can you do to retain and attract individuals in those roles. And then last but not least, how can you make sure there's truly an ROI in the learning and development activities that you're going to offer as an employer? And therefore, when you think about education, learning, and development, it is no longer just about getting a college degree. Learning happens all the time, everywhere. And probably more and more it will happen on the job and in very, very different ways. If you think about the young generation that is constantly on their phone, They want to get their training materials on a video, 5 minutes or less on your phone. And you might think that doesn't work for you. Well, guess what? It works for them. And therefore, for us as employers, it's really about how can you adapt and diversify your offerings to make sure that you meet your workforce where they're at versus asking them to meet you where you are at. And when you think about the future of education, learning, and development, I won't surprise you by saying AI will have a profound impact on learning and development. If you think about the traditional way of educating, where you have a classroom and where you have really, really smart kids, the average kid, and the kid that is struggling. As teachers, we basically teach to the middle. And what happens with that is that the smarter kids get bored, and people who are struggling probably very likely are going to miss out on the stuff. But with AI, there are so many opportunities to customize all of that going forward. The other one is to think through, it's no longer just about the training format as well, but to think about how can you create customized learning paths for individuals. So where it's no longer that if you start in a role, you have to follow this specific path, but you get this intake and say, based on your experiences, based on your propensity to learn, let's create a learning path customized for you, so you can ultimately do it in the least amount of time. And then last but not least, it's no longer just about everything being online or everything just being in a classroom. How can you create truly customized experiences going forward?
If today's conversation inspires you, we invite you to experience it in person at the Feast Summit, returning Thursday, November 5th, 2026 in Honolulu during the 16th Annual Hawaiʻi Food and Wine Festival. Mark your calendars, tickets go on sale this May. Learn more at hawaiifoodandwinefestival.com.
So when I think about the future, to me it's crystal clear that within a very short period of time, education, learning, and development will have profound transformations as well. And if you think about the challenges you're faced with as of today, on the one hand, embrace them, but on the other hand, think through what can you do very differently going forward? What might you be able to learn from other organizations going forward in order to be better prepared for the future? And I think as an industry and as great employers, we have a role to play as well to shape our collective future. Similar to how we as a Culinary Institute of America are thinking about our future. So we are here to support both the industry as well as the next generation of culinary, food, beverage, and hospitality leaders. So when I started a year ago, I asked many of those in my ecosystem what is the CA all about? How would you define the CIA? And people said, well, that's a weird question because we're clearly a school or a college. And I said, I see it actually very different. Because to me, we are an education, learning, and development organization that should serve many more segments than just those who are looking today for a college experience. Because as a college as of today, we're not yet in the continuing education business. We're not necessarily at scale supporting the broader industry, but we're going to change that because our hope and aspiration is to become actually a lifelong learning and development partner for both the industry, companies in the industry, and for individuals, no matter where they're at, whether they're at the beginning of their career, in the industry, or converting from another industry. And then one of the interesting other elements we are focusing on is how can we become better at what is our core? Because at the core, we're an amazing college for culinary, food, beverage, and hospitality leaders. So we started years ago as a trade school. We've morphed into becoming a great specialty-focused college. And we're going to finish now the journey to become a university of applied gastronomy. And we're going to focus on the craft, the arts and the sciences, and the business of food and beverage. So we will continue to remain very, very focused on supporting both the food and beverage experience industry, as well as those individuals who are eager to get going in the industry or in the industry and want to continue to grow. So for me, it's really, really clear when I think about the future, no matter what impact AI will have, all of us will continue to eat probably at least 3 meals a day, and that therefore all of us will continue to be an extraordinary customer base for the industry we get to serve on a regular basis. And if I have piqued your interest a little bit more about the CIA, we are one of the very few schools that has a dedicated Netflix series. So we have actually Netflix released mid-September, the Next Gen Chef series, 8 episodes that were actually filmed at our campus in Hyde Park over the summer of last year. And if you want to see more of it, you can help us by clicking, or actually watching the show, telling your others as well, because the more of you watch it, the greater the likelihood we're going to get season 2, 3, and 4 on the books as well. Last but not least, we are here to support you. The CA has been around for almost 80 years. We have an extraordinary alumni network. And just like you, we're evolving. Whatever input you have for us, I am here to learn from you, and whatever we can do for you, love to help you. Mahalo.
Mahalo for listening to Feast, Dish, and Dialogue. If you enjoyed this conversation, subscribe and share it with someone passionate about food, agriculture, and hospitality. To learn more about the Feast Summit and the Hawaiʻi Food and Wine Festival, visit hawaiifoodandwinefestival.com. Be sure to join us for the next episode of Feast, Dish, and Dialogue.